IAMBEST TV. God is in charge.
Hello viewers, I'm Elisha Emmanuel Borde, working with the African Nature Investor, presently in Gumti, Adamawa State. There is something interesting that I would love to talk about with you, which is some questions I've been receiving about what nature is doing, most especially that has to do with the climate change. There are these confusing things that people find it very difficult to really tell what they are all about, and I feel it's a good time and opportunity to tell you more about them. You may have heard about them, but I will emphasize them and probably explain them as to the common man or the layman knowledge, so you can have a broader view of what it is. A lot of you must have heard about the global warming or the greenhouse effect, and as well climate change. The greenhouse effect, it's as simple as having a greenhouse or that small garden that you would always see with a covering. You can imagine what it feels like when you enter inside a greenhouse. The temperature inside is different from what you have outside. This is as a result of the absorbance of the light rays or the heat that comes from the external environment into the greenhouse, and so the heat would find it very difficult to escape because there is a shield that protects the inside. So this is what happened with our Earth. When you hear the word global warming, what comes to your mind? Well, global warming, it's all about the rise in temperature. And how does this comes about? It's as a result of the heating or the sun heat or ultraviolet rays that comes from the sun enter the earth atmosphere, and at the end the whole heat generated do not escape from earth as a result of a lot of covering happening. So global warming as a whole is one thing that has affected the earth, and everybody is talking about it because of the changes that is happening within our environment. Somehow these things are not seen because they happen in a long time, so these effects are not seen as fast as we should see them. And you hear a lot of people arguing that they don't really exist, or there is nothing like global warming, where the ozone layer covers the earth or envelopes the earth, and so the heat that is generated within find it very difficult to escape outside the atmosphere, and so the heat is trapped inside, and when it is trapped inside, of course it causes rise in temperature, melting in the ice cap, which increases the sea volume or the ocean volume, and all of this would in turn affect other climatic conditions such as drought, other factors like the earthquake, like the tsunami, or high strong winds, and so many more. So all of these are as a result of some of the activities human does. Over the years, there have been a lot of development happening on earth with industrialization, and this has caused a lot of emission within the earth's surface, where mining activities is happening. A lot of carbon monoxide is released in the atmosphere, and all of this will go in turn reacting with other chemicals within the earth, and so this causes a lot of trouble that still now a lot of people argue. Now the other thing is the reduction in the forest product. When I say forest, I'm talking about plants. I happen to be a botanist, and I've learned a lot about plant and what plant does in our environment. Aside just producing oxygen, plant absorb carbon monoxide. They also absorb carbon dioxide. They also absorb other chemicals that are released within the environment. But when you look at nature and how it works, there seems to be more happening with human than what nature can actually handle. And so you hear a lot of advocates talking about how we're supposed to use inorganic substances, or some people are against using a lot of inorganic materials within the environment. So, but until we understand this, or else you won't be able to get what is really happening within the environment. I will give you an example with a lot of deforestation that is happening. If you have lived in a forest environment, you would see that the temperature within that setting is different from where you don't have trees. There will be a lot of oxygen, there will be a lot of freshness that comes from that environment. You have a lot of bird species singing, a lot of animals that comes around, and all of these things have a way of controlling the environment, and as well as what happens. So the system itself is a natural phenomenon that tends to fix itself when things goes wrong. But when you don't have these things like the trees I'm talking about, of course you alter the system. There is this part of the north that I traveled through and had to stop by to observe what has really changed. I had a privilege to travel through that same path some years ago, about 2 decades ago. There were a lot of trees, but coming back this year, I discovered there were not trees. I also observed that the temperature back then was not as hot as it is now. What it simply means is those trees that provides that cool environment were no longer there. You can just go back to the Google Earth map and click even your own environment, not necessarily the place I'm talking about. Click the environment you are and find it and see what has really changed. You'll discover that a lot has really changed. So while I was coming back and found this, I felt this heat that I've not felt before from that environment. This is because of the activities that are happening there. Part of it is some of those mining activities, the quarry, a lot of radiations happening. The sun hits the stones, and of course the sun, the reflection of those heats was badly felt. This is just a typical example of what happens. But someone will think that is nothing compared to what we're really getting. Over the years, if this is to continue, it means we will be in trouble. So when you cut down trees, I will tell you this is the implication. You're going to have a high temperature or rise in temperature. This will affect you even in the afternoons and in the evening when the sun is high. Of course, when you talk about windbreak, you will have high windstorm coming when you don't have trees to break the speed. And all of these things will in turn affect even our buildings. They will go on to even increase drought. When there is precipitation will happen as a result of those gas exchanges that happen within an environment. For forested environment, you will agree with me that they tend to experience a long or a prolonged rainfall compared to those areas that have limited trees. Why is it so? It's as a result of the activities that happens within plants. So you can imagine that you live in an environment that is deforested. A lot of things will go wrong. Flooding would happen because even from the rainfall that comes, if you don't have canopy that breaks the speed at which rain drops, you would have a lot of weathering happening within the soil. And when those happen, of course, you know that erosion is inevitable. So one of those things I want to talk about, I will give you an example with something I experienced or I observed just recently while traveling all the way from Adamawa to Bauchi. And I can see that the last 20 years, the number of trees have reduced rapidly over the years. And you can see that the dryness within this environment have also increased. Now, the implication is that the northeast trade wind that comes from this direction will of course increase compared to the southwest trade winds. And all of this would always come with drought, would always come with a lot of hailstones or sandstorms, and these have a strong implication on our environment. So among these factors I'm talking about, these are not just common things that you can just say and people will understand without evidences. Even when you have evidences, they will have to be so evident that you would see them happening over the years. If we had a camera that had been monitoring this, like you would see with what the NASA or the Google Earth satellite, if you have an opportunity to see what has happened within an environment for the last 10 years, you discover that it's either you have houses in certain places, or there are no houses, or there was a tree somewhere and the tree is no longer there, or there was a grass cover in an environment, but over the years those surfaces have been washed as a result of floodings and all of it. So if you have those evidences, you would believe that climate change is true. Man has been on the top of this system because he is the one who benefits more, and he seems to tap more into the whole services that nature offers. So what is the function of a man in this system? For me, I would say his role, his major role, is to make sure that these sources or resources are available for him to use until the next generation benefits from them. And for him to sustainably keep this or utilize these resources that we're talking about, so many factors have to be put in check, which is like controlling what we do, how much more we release to the environment, how we destroy nature's wealth, how we destroy the forest, how we are able to keep the knowledge of how to use these resources for the next generations. And the other implication again is that as soon as those inner elements are exposed out, some of them are radioactive, they are heavy metals, they're exposed on our environment, on the earth's surface, and some of us would carelessly go to those environments either by irrigation, use those waters, or take some of those things, and at the end it causes harm to us. Now I will tell you, heavy elements such as lead, cadmium are some of those heavy materials that are exposed from the ground to the earth's surface. You can imagine even our vegetable that we eat, they absorb these substances, and some of them, when we take them, we would have a lot of health challenges, and you would wonder what is really happening. These are some of the things that we're doing, thinking we're enjoying, or we're developing the whole earth surface, only to realize that we're just causing more harm than good to our systems. So as part of my advice to everyone who is listening to me is that you should be mindful about what you do within an environment, especially where you live in. If I was to advise you as a botanist, I would tell you to plant a tree in your house. Of course, you know the importance, aside from just the oxygen. Learn to see what has happened and what is happening, and think about what will possibly happen tomorrow. If we keep this in mind, it will help us manage our environment very well. It's not just good to see an environment and you try to take out what is in that environment. It might have its role, it might have its function. Yeah, it's very important. Sadly, we are not brought up to be biologists. Irrespective of what you're going to be or what you study, it is important that you understand what your environment holds, so that it can help you manage the environment. It can help you give birth to earth what you should give birth. For me, I've always been an advocate against a lot of organic waste that are released on earth. One of them is plastic. I'm not really a fan of plastic because I've seen the effect on our waters, even to our animals. The common example I will give you is the other parts where you find a goat or you slaughter a goat and you discover that a goat has nylon, or a dog is struggling with nylon. These are some of those things. The truth is, nylon do not decompose as easily as other substances that are nature friendly. So one thing again I would say is, don't be carried away by the saying that there is a lot within an environment. There is just limited resources around. And with the growing in population, there will be competition. And when there is competition, there is going to be chaos. And when there is chaos, of course, crisis. I just hope you would have learned something from what I said. Thank you.